Well, hey guys, I am Juliana Brosti, Traveling Jewels, and I am one of the chapter leaders for Travel Massive Colorado. So we're super excited to have you today. I've been really inspired that Travel Massive Live, which is a whole other chapter for live streaming, they've been doing a weekly chat about COVID-19 and just how it's affecting the travel industry. And so we're really excited to bring this conversation to our community in Colorado. So welcome if you're from a different place than Colorado, welcome. We know that we might have people joining from as far away as Brazil or Germany or even Tasmania. I think we're going to have we have a special attendee today. We have our Travel Massive leader, Ian, who's on chat too. So it's wonderful to have people from all over the world with us today. I just wanted to give you guys a quick intro on what we're up to, and then I'm going to pass it over. So it is April 1, April Fool's Day. This is our first ever live stream, so please bear with us. We're still learning all the buttons and figuring out all the functions. Definitely go ahead and leave questions in the chat box, because my job is to monitor what everyone is up to, and I'll be reading your questions at the end. So we'll have like 15 minutes of Q&A at the very end to answer your questions. We also wanted to mention that we normally meet around this time at happy hour over at Wayfinder, which is a wonderful co-op for travel and outdoors industries to meet in one place and have a beer or do a presentation. And so we're super sad we can't be there in person tonight. But I did want to give them a shout out and remind everybody that thank you for your flexibility, because we're under a stay-at-home order right now and we can't meet in person, so this is the next best thing. I also wanted to let you know that Travel Massive Live is having another chat tomorrow morning. So if you're interested in this topic, please sign up for that, and there'll be more interesting discussion, more globally focused. And finally, Travel Massive announced this really cool feature today. It's called Travel Massive Match. So it's kind of a neat take on some of the swiping technologies. Swipe right if you like that person, and swipe left if you don't want to talk to them again. And it's a neat way to kind of browse through the profiles in our community, because we have a lot of cool and interesting people in our community. And speaking of, Sherry Ott is going to introduce with you our fabulous panelists today. Sherry is one of our second co-chapter leader, so we run this show together, and I want to give her the mic. Here you go.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. I see more people coming on all the time, which is exciting. Welcome to Colorado. I think most of us here on this panel are in Denver, some in Boulder. So as you can see, I'm wearing my Colorado shirt today in honor of that. And as we said, we normally meet over happy hour, so if it's appropriate to drink wherever you are, feel free to grab a local drink and enjoy. So this was originally going to be an in-person meeting, but we were able to switch it to do it online, which we're really thankful about. But I basically asked a few of our members from different areas in the travel industry to share their experiences so far with the pandemic, in the hopes that we can really kind of learn from each other, as well as gain some strength from each other. We all know it's a really, really hard time right now for the travel industry. Every one of us are feeling it for sure. So we have an hour set aside for this. We're gonna go through a number of discussion points, and then at the end, we're gonna cover your questions. However, you can put the questions in chat at any time. Jules is gonna be monitoring it, and we'll try to cover as many as we can at the end. And she'll go ahead and moderate all of that and be your voice for the most part. Also, I guess I should just say, if you're just joining and you're going, why does my video or my audio work? It's because in a webinar, we actually have them turned off, and only the panelists you're gonna be able to see and hear at this time. So don't worry, your computer is working. And let's see. The other thing I would say in this is, since we do have a decent sized group here online, we ask that you have your questions that really kind of pertain to a bit of a wider audience, as opposed to maybe your specific detailed business or situation, just so that we can help. And there are ways to get hold of everyone afterwards to maybe ask detailed questions too. So since we do have some people here that are not from Colorado, we thought we'd start with just where are we right now in Colorado as far as the pandemic, because obviously it's rolling through the United States, different places are hotspots, et cetera. In Colorado right now, we are basically a few weeks into our stay-at-home order. We just found out yesterday it's going to be extended until the end of April. So we have a month more. And as far as our stay-at-home order in Colorado, at least, we're allowed to still go to grocery stores, still exercise outside, 1 or 2 people. We're allowed to go to liquor stores and, of course, marijuana stores because it is Colorado. And our airport is obviously still open, DIA. And the other thing I think that's happening all around the US right now is the federal stimulus package is being rolled out. So if you haven't looked into it, you really should. I think we're going to talk, some people here are going to talk a little bit about that because there really are some good benefits for small businesses. So that's kind of all the information. Hopefully that helps. And I say we just get started. So as Jules said, I'm going to introduce myself first. I'm Sherry Ott, one of the co-chapter leaders of Colorado Travel Massive. I'm actually a member of the travel media. I've been a travel blogger since 2006. So a long time in this space, and travel is my life, is my world. So obviously I am also being affected by this. I always worked from home, or on the road, so that part isn't different. But it is really different as far as like writing and blogging and, you know, I think, yeah, as of this week, all of my future trips have been canceled up to the state. So press trips, everything. And so we'll see how that all comes back, hopefully. So that's me. I'm going to start with the panelists now. If the panelists could just tell us who they are, what they do. And I'm going to start with Kent.
Thanks, Sherry. I'm Kent Redding. I'm president of Africa Adventure Consultants. We're an outbound tour operator specializing in award-winning luxury and adventure safaris to East and Southern Africa. So basically big game safaris and walking safaris, Kilimanjaro climbs and such.
John, you want to go next?
Sure, thanks, Sherry. I'm John McMillen. I'm with Inside Japan Tours, and we are a specialist tour operator. We run small group tours as well as fully customizable trips, packages to Japan. We're pretty unique in the space in that all of us who work on the team have lived in and worked in Japan for a year or more. So it's kind of like our second home. And yeah, really happy to be here.
Cool. And Abby.
Yeah, hi, my name is Abby Leeper. I am the communications manager with the Colorado Tourism Office, also known as Visit Colorado.
Yay. We love Visit Colorado. Okay, so let's see, Kent, I'm going to start with you since we started there. So how has the pandemic affected your business so far?
Right. So so far, it hasn't really bothered us at all. No, I'm kidding. It's had a huge negative impact. You know, all our destination countries have closed their borders. Even if you could get there, you'd be put in mandatory 14-day quarantine or longer. All flights are canceled to almost all of our destinations. You know, they're on lockdown, most of them. So, you know, basically everything's closed and will be so for the foreseeable future. So, you know, we track the impact on a daily basis, and, you know, we've had actually few cancellations, you know, a minor number, but we've had basically for most of the Africa safari business, we're working on postponement. So we've had over $1 million in postponed business, which is great that they postponed, but it also means that we don't get that revenue this year. We've tracked more than $1 million in lost revenue, people who have started the booking process with us and then got cold feet and pulled out. And so, you know, it's been an incredibly big impact, and you know, I'm sure it'll be a lot more in the coming months.
Yeah. Is most of the rebooking for next year, 2021?
That's what we're encouraging people to do. There's some people who are optimistic and trying to book for late summer, early fall this year, but we're trying to discourage, well, you know, we'll do it if they want to, but we're trying to discourage that and push them into 2021 or beyond.
Okay. Yeah. It's a big unknown at this point. John, what about you? How has it affected you guys?
Yeah, it's of course been rough. You know, being right next to China, Japan had some of the earliest kind of interventions going, that sort of thing. And yeah, like Kent mentioned, most of what we're pushing for is rebookings. We've been pretty fortunate that we've been able to kind of convert about 60% of our spring bookings over. You know, it's especially hard hitting for Japan because spring is the peak season to visit. You know, it's everybody thinks of pink cherry blossoms, right? And so March and April are the highest months of the year. So obviously our biggest months of the year are a net loss of revenue right up front. So yeah, of course that has long-reaching impacts with the business. You know, we've lost teammates already, that sort of thing. You know, not really sure what's coming down the pipe. You know, obviously we're taking a keen interest in the CARES Act and, you know, what we can apply for there to, you know, sort of maintain, you know, as much as we can, you know, because obviously, like I mentioned, Japan's kind of like our second home, so we're all pretty dedicated to it. But yeah, it's we're hoping to see, you know, openings in May, hoping to see business come back, you know, kind of like late fall. Folks are booking in for October, November, December and beyond, sort of thing. So that's good. You know, April's going to be tough. We heard, you know, in the last couple of days, I think that Japan Times had announced that they were looking at, you know, kind of like banning entry for U.S. citizens and that sort of thing, and also China and some of Western Europe and things like that. So, you know, that it's been rough and tough times ahead as well. So,
is your customer base primarily North America?
So we're actually international. We were founded in the UK in 2000, and so that's where our headquarters is. We also have the office in Boulder, Colorado. We have an office in Brisbane, Australia, as well as 2 on the ground in Japan. And so, you know, businesses pretty much come from all the English-speaking world, predominantly for the US office. You know, we're handling clients from Canada, the US, as well as Central and South America for folks that are looking for English-speaking services.
And I do have one other question very specific to Japan, because
Sure.
we also just heard that the Olympics have been postponed. I'm assuming that's somewhat of a good thing for you guys?
Yeah, you know, it was a great unknown for a while. You know, it's been a challenge. You know, for a hot minute, we were pretty worried that they were going to postpone it to spring of 2021, which would have kind of, you know, conflicted with the spring rush. But it looks like it'll be kind of the same date, same structure in July and August of 2021. So hopefully, you know, the structure of events will be maintained the same. And of course, what we're working on in the background here is kind of, you know, reinstilling those contracts with our partners on the ground to get the allocation for rooms and that sort of thing. And I guess I should, you know, PSA here that we are not affiliated with the IOC or an official Olympics, you know, sponsor in any way. We are happy to plan at people's trips during that time.
Yeah, that's big. I'm glad that they did end up postponing it, actually. Okay, Abby, tell us about Visit Colorado and how it's affected the state tourism.
Gosh, it's honestly kind of hard to know where to start. I would say the good thing that we have going for us right now is that our busiest travel season is summer. That is when the most people take their trips into Colorado. That said, we can't discount the ski season because that brings in a lot of people that spend a lot of money here on their vacations and look forward to it every year. Spring break and not having our resorts open for the safety of our travelers and for our locals, that was a huge impact on the industry. But we have to look at, you know, the what we need for public health, really, at this point. And so right now, Colorado in and of itself is in, I would say, the crisis mode of how do we manage this as a public health issue, and how can Visit Colorado elevate what our public health partners are doing. And that means not taking trips, unfortunately. And we're looking ahead to how we can invite people back when the time is right, but we're not there yet.
So you're kind of in a
tough.
Holding pattern.
Yeah,
It's really tough.
Yeah.
I look out the window at these mountains every day and I want to go.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's really, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure the Denver restrictions are that we're supposed to stay in our own county. So even though we can go out and walk around and, it's not like I can hop out to Vail and go hike, sadly.
Exactly.
So, okay, great. Thank you for all of that. Let's see, John, can you tell us, like, what's your typical day like now?
Yep. So as with everyone, I'm sure it's drastically different. Some good things have come out of it. Usually I'll start my day with pounding on my door and a child on my face. And so I get up and I take the kids out to let out their energy. So I do that kind of like for an hour or two in the mornings. Then I kind of go down into my basement huddle where I get my workflow on. We have a kind of catch-up meeting with our UK office to kind of go over anything new over the past day. Then of course handling email, sort of like I always have, so that sort of hasn't changed. And then I apportion kind of the rest of the day to connecting with our partners, and then also kind of doing ongoing projects to really kind of upkeep things and take care of things that maybe I haven't been on top of in the past, and also really plan for the future and get those processes, procedures in place for the rebound on the other side. So
I don't know if you know this, but about what percentage of your time are you now planning for rebound stuff? I mean, because before, I'm sure everyone was in this crisis mode where they're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We've got to handle all these rebookings, et cetera. But I would assume you also have to spend a pretty decent amount of time on what do you do after, or how do you come back?
Right. Yeah. And to be perfectly honest, I do spend a lot of time in crisis mode, fighting fires and such. It is really difficult, kind of navigating those discussions with folks, relationships that I've developed over years, having those hard conversations. So that is definitely a major portion of what I'm doing. It has, kind of slowly been ratcheting down as the number of trips that were planned in go away. So, I kind of like the time is doing this, which is really good. So you asked about the percentage of time that I'm spending kind of focused on the future. And I'd say right now, it's maybe about a quarter of my day. That might even be a generous estimate. I'd like to, get that percentage up a lot higher, because I think, it's what's happening right now is a lot out of our control, but we can definitely control what we do going forward. So, that's certainly my focus, in the weeks and months ahead.
Great. Kent, what's your typical day?
Yeah, so I've been getting up earlier than I used to. So I'm getting up, whether it's because I need to or because I'm just, have a little bit of stress that's waking me up. But, getting up at 5 and basically gather information, because, it's changing so fast. Different policies are coming, different directives are coming out, different policies are coming forth. So we need to be up on that kind of stuff. And we have one staff member whose only job right now is to update our massive spreadsheet with different policies, directives, different new terms and conditions from airlines, from hotels, from ground handlers. And so it's a big job just to keep up with what's going on. And then, like John, we're still, I'm 80% in crisis mode still, just dealing with rebookings, negotiating with suppliers, explaining it to customers who are sometimes frustrated or upset, that they can't get all their money back right now or ever. And that, you know, that, but they do have some choices that we're offering, which I feel really good about. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then the rest of my time is spent working on the financial side of things, which I think is something that I could talk about a little bit later, but I think that's super important to focus on finances now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely want to come back to that in a little bit as far as financial stuff. But we'll go on to Abby here real quick. What is your typical day?
Yeah, so the day has shifted a little bit, obviously, but last week I was down in our state's emergency operations center working as a public information officer in the Joint Information Center. So basically it was kind of all hands on deck. The health department sees this as a long-term crisis and they need all the help they can get, and I was happy to be down there. This week looks a little different in that I am working from home, but continually, like the other panelists have said, trying to keep up to date on what regulations and rules are changing, sometimes hourly it seems like, and then touching base with our industry partners on what they're seeing in their different counties or towns. Also, the Colorado Tourism Office is under the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. And so because of that, we have partnerships with a lot of other state agencies. And there have been a lot of webinars and calls going on about where we are in the crisis and what recovery looks like. So I've been involved in those conversations, and I'm really lucky to work at the state because there are a lot of good minds in the room, and we're going to get through it.
That's great to hear. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. I guess if you could, I know there are tons of challenges for everyone. Well, actually, let me actually back up. I'm going to give you my typical day from the media standpoint, because one of the things I remember that John had said was about going through emails. One of the biggest differences in my world is I wake up now and I have no emails, zero. It's really weird and disturbing. But yeah, I mean, normally my day would be, you know, answering emails, working on logistics for the next trips, talking to different DMOs and companies about trips or pitches or whatever. And, you know, I've just, obviously all these companies and DMOs have enough to deal with, clearly. So I've just kind of went silent on some of that. You know, I offer support when I can, but there's no need to, there's no reason for me to be sending them emails really, and for them to be sending me anything at this point. So that's one of big change. I'm used to working from home as a writer. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's probably my biggest stuff. And I still am writing, and I'm still writing about travel. I'm still doing newsletters. One of the things that I try to do is a newsletter a week. And I look at that as my opportunity to just build a relationship, build audience, because that's, from a blogging writer standpoint, that's really all I can do at this point. I can't travel. So building audience and, you know, really being real about things, I think that's what's important. So that's my media side, I guess. So I'm curious from you guys, if you could, I know there's lots of challenges. If you could talk about one, what's been the hardest challenge in this whole thing? Kent, we'll start with you.
Amongst other challenges, I would say that the biggest challenge I think for us has been financial, and it's not just how do we keep the lights on, how do we keep people employed, but it's also figuring out what different entities are doing. Are they changing policies in order to hold more money, not to our customers' advantage, et cetera? Or also explaining financial realities to customers who aren't on the cutting edge of this whole thing. Like, we're living and breathing this every day, and they're not. They're just living their lives, and all of a sudden they get a call from us and say, hey, you know, do you want to postpone your trip a year or lose your deposit. And they're like, what? So, it's walking them through that over and over, what, how things work, reasons why things are the way they are, and then getting to a good place with them, which we have been quite successful in doing, but it takes a lot of work to do that. And my advice to people is to people in the industry is, you need to look at your finances. Like you have to get a cash flow spreadsheet. You have to figure out what's your reduced amount of income. How are you going to make up for that? What are you going to do? What are you going to cut? What are you going to postpone? Who are you negotiating with to ease that shortage of money? And if you haven't applied for these loans that are being made available, then you need to do it yesterday. I mean, I think we were like the first company to fill out the first set of loans that came out from the SBA for disaster relief. But now that's separate from the CARES Act, and if people aren't applying for that, potentially some free money there, then, you just got to do it. And there's other options too. So, they need to look at that, talk to the banker and look at that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I actually spent most of my day yesterday looking into a bunch of stuff because, as a side note, it was actually surprising to me, but those loans are also available to sole proprietors. So people like me whose business has dried up also, which is kind of important. So very good advice. It is hard to sort through all that stuff though. It's a lot of information. Abby, what's been one of your biggest challenges at Visit Colorado?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we faced, this was, I guess, between the last couple weeks, was really keeping up with how we message to travelers, if we message at all. And this crisis is different in that the type of crisis we normally deal with at Visit Colorado there's a wildfire, or there's a severe avalanche going on. There are certain areas across the state that maybe aren't safe for travelers, but very rarely have we ever had to tell people you can't come to the state. So that has been really sad and really difficult for us to do, but it's the right thing, as it's the safe thing for our residents and for travelers alike, as we've seen. We know how this virus spreads now, and but it's tough. And so as we deal with that, next we look at, okay, what are those steps that we take once people are ready and once public health tells us that it's safe to go out there again.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to get into some of that in a second, as far as like, what are those steps? John, you want to give us your biggest challenge?
So I would say from my role, I'm in business development, and we work very closely with the travel trade, travel advisors, other tour operators, that sort of thing. And I've spent years and years developing these relationships, and I would say kind of navigating those conversations, similar to, on Kent's end, where you're informing people about financial realities and that sort of thing. It's with the added challenge of an intermediary, working with a partner who has a client, and they're on the advocacy side and that sort of thing. And sort of treading, kind of like riding that fence together to try and make sure that you get a good outcome for, everyone that's involved, not just, us, not just our partners, not just their clients, but also, our staff and our partners on the ground, and, the local communities that we're a part of and that sort of thing. So it's a really, really broad scope. And something that we've never had to deal with before. I think most folks have never had to deal with before, but it's a real challenge for sure, navigating those conversations.
You mentioned staff, and have any of you guys had to lay off staff or furlough staff or whatever they're calling it these days?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can jump in there. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, the loss of kind of teammates, and so, this is certainly a part of it. Up to this point, kind of like that sort of I don't even know what the right term is for it, but is sort of inevitable. What we're trying to do is minimize it, as much as possible. And I'm really optimistic that the SBA loans and that sort of thing, the CARES Act, will help out in that arena. Especially there are possibilities for sort of like loan forgiveness for people keeping folks on payroll, and that sort of thing. So I think that's an excellent provision. And obviously it's an 800 page document, and there's a lot of kind of like details that need to get worked out and that kind of thing. So yeah, like Kent said, just keeping on top of all of that on a daily basis, and making sure that you have a really solid plan and you've thought through all the contingencies to be able to help the most people. It's vital.
Yeah.
So we haven't, knock on wood, had to lay anybody off yet, but there and the people that our staff that we still have on board are working extra hours to try and accommodate all our rebookings of guests. But, that can only last so long. So these, what the future holds, we don't know for sure, but it's going to be hugely contingent on the Payroll Protection Act. Do we get approved for that? How much? And do they extend it? Because right now it's for a 2-month period, as far as I understand it. And, the question is, are they going to re-up after some time? The other thing I just want to throw in there is that I've been attending there's a lot of webinars being offered on the CARES Act and payroll protection and that kind of thing. And it's kind of scary today when I learned what we were told is that there's something like, these numbers aren't exactly right, but it's something like 3.5 million potential recipients of the grants from the grants from the payroll protection portion of the CARES Act, and only probably 70,000 are going to get them.
Oh, wow. That's depressing.
You're right. So don't hold me to the numbers, but there's a lot more people that are going to apply that are going to get it, according to the sources that I listened to today. And so that, to me, reinforces the need to get on this right away and be, an early applicant in this process.
So you brought up something about the webinars on this. Where can people find that information?
They're mostly coming from banks and other financial institutions which have relationships or some kind of business opportunities associated with this. For instance, the banks, there's certain banks that are SBA partners, and they're the ones who are going to be administering the loans. And so they're trying to get as many people to apply with them as opposed to another bank that also has this opportunity. So that's, if you just search it up, if people want to contact me, I've got a certain one that I can recommend. But there's a number of banks out there that are doing it.
Great. Super. Abby.
So luckily we've been fortunate enough not to have to take drastic staffing measures. Since we are a state agency, we operate on a fiscal year. But I would say the fiscal year for 2021, we're all kind of looking to see how that will be impacted, and hopefully not have to make any staffing changes.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's get to some potential solutions or advice. We all know we're in a bad space right now, but are there any, or I should say, do you have any advice for your peers, like in maybe focusing on your specific sector, whether that be travel agents, DMOs, tour agencies, as far as advice that you might want to offer people that have worked for you? Abby, we'll go back to you. Sorry.
Oh boy. I think something to keep in mind is just how important those relationships are. Our industry partners, our media contacts, we're reaching out to folks weekly, if not more, to just check in and say, how are you doing? What can we do to help? And because those relationships have been established already, in times of crisis like this, it makes it a lot more manageable to deal with together. I'm not having to reintroduce or to introduce myself to someone over at the Department of Public Health because they already know me, because we already have that established connection and trust. And they know that we're not going to keep, blasting out, come visit Colorado when that's not a safe thing to do. And that said, it's also important to remember that a one-size-fits-all approach is not going to work in a situation like this. As we look at recovery and as we go from the crisis mode to a transition to being open for business again, that will happen in stages. And we can't, like I said, one size fits all won't be the way to do it. A county in a more rural area may not be ready to welcome visitors back the way a more metropolitan area might be as well.
Oh, that's interesting. True. Very true. John, do you have any advice for, tour operators?
Sure. Yeah, I would say, make sure that you're real solid on your company's values and that your communications all match and jive with who you are as a company. And then I would also say to be extremely proactive with communications, in every aspect, in terms of what you can do for your clients and, options that you can give for the future with travel with you.
And speaking of communications, I know, Abby was saying that obviously their communication is really don't come and visit Colorado. But for you guys, what are you communicating out to your clients? Like what are you sharing?
Yeah. I mean, there's it really depends on who the communication is going to. So, for example, folks that are, intending to travel or, or maybe have a trip booked in very soon, that communication is going to look extremely different from somebody who has a trip booked in, say, after July. And so communications for folks that are after July are, just kind of like reassurance and, kind of empathy with the situation and the uncertainty and that sort of thing, and that we're monitoring things closely and we'll be in close contact, as everything develops and that sort of thing, that we're here. We want to make sure that, your trips are everything you want them to be. And so, please, contact us with any questions sort of thing. And then, on the sort of marketing side, it's, we're definitely not showcasing product. We're not, giving the call to action and all this stuff right now. It's really switching gears to, just kind of inspiration. What was the term that I heard earlier? It was like armchair travelers or something like that. I'm forgetting, but just really like showing people what they can dream about for when the opportunity comes again for them to get on the road.
Yeah.
So,
I saw you did a webinar today. Was that what that was about?
Yeah. So one of the things we've been doing recently, honestly, we did not plan this to coincide with COVID, but we started doing webinars on, kind of like destination training, inspiration on different things you can do in Japan, just because to kind of showcase our depth of knowledge. So we run them every week on Wednesday. And so it is to kind of like give people a break, show some inspiration about getting on the road. We're all in this because we love travel, right? So, we want to make sure we kind of preserve that through everything. And so that's it has come at a very opportune time that we pursued that. So
no, that's great. Kent, any advice you can give to other travel agencies?
Yeah. So our communication is mostly written at this point, and postings, blogs. We did put up a banner on the top of our website with COVID-19 information, which talks about how the whole rebooking process works, but it also relates to our other messaging, which is, now's a good time to book for the future, because for a couple reasons. One is we have some special offers, which are kind of book for the short term, and there's a special exception where you can change it and book and rebook it for later. These are relaxed terms and conditions that allow for bookings now, because that's what we really need. And everybody has time, right? Because they're at home, they're stuck at home, you know, with not being able to go anywhere. And that T's and C's part is related to my advice, which is, this is a good opportunity. Well, it's not a good opportunity. Like, companies need to look at their terms and conditions, because I think what you'll find is that there's probably, you might not have any, they might be too loose, they might not be updated. And this is super important during this time when there's some conflict going on. And my last bit of advice, sorry to go on, but my last bit of advice is to don't give up, you know, be strong. You're not going to survive this by, you know, laying down and, you know, curling up into the fetal position. You know, I first moved to Africa to work in the safari business in 1998, which was right after, you know, a then unknown terrorist organization called Al Qaeda bombed the Tanzania and Nairobi embassies, and you know the safari industry went to, you know, it had a huge downturn, and then we had, you know, 9/11. No, I'm forgetting the order. You know, then we had 9/11, and then we had the economic crisis of 2008, 2009, and then we had the Ebola crisis of 2014 to 2016. You know, these things happen every few years, and this is a terrible one, but it's one of the many that you have to figure out how to get through it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Don't give up. I agree. I have been in the fetal position before, probably just last week, but it is true. You got to just keep going, and it's good advice. We've been through other things like this before, always a little different, but you know, that's what keeps it challenging, I guess. Okay, so I have really kind of one more big question for people, and then we'll cover some other questions that people have that have been watching. So when we do, you know, assuming this too shall pass, right? So when we do have a ETA for travel restrictions domestically and abroad being lifted, what's your plan to jumpstart the travel industry, kind of in your role specifically or industry-wide? And I have another question with that too, is where will you first spend money? John, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's the question of the hour. So, you know, started off the conversation with transitioning my time to what to do forward thinking wise. And yeah, sort of our plan to jumpstart things, you know, clearly it's preparation. You know, definitely, as, you know, Abby mentioned, keeping those partnerships strong that you have on the ground, you know, and keeping those partnerships strong that you have at home. You know, like I mentioned, we work with the travel industry and the travel trade, you know, extensively. And so really just, you know, kind of collectively using that network to, you know, broadcast out and get people excited again, and reassure people and make sure that people have the right information, you know, that you can make basically people, you know, feel safe to get out there again. And so I think that'll be a big push initially. And then your question about where are we going to put money, and you know, I would say that you know, it's going to be online video, social media, that sort of push. You know, that's where most folks are, especially you know when we're stuck in home. You know, because that's where everybody's going to be hanging out. And so yeah, be where your market is, and make sure that they are excited, inspired, and feel safe to get out there again and put all your energy and effort there. So, and people will come because there's going to be a giant pent up demand to get on out traveling again. So, it's going to be there. We just need to, take advantage of it.
That's true. I'm going to be the
get
first.
people's dreams. Right now.
Get me on a plane now.
You're going through withdrawal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though I went to Japan last year. Abby, what about you guys? What about Visit Colorado?
Sure. So I think something we all know is that Coloradans are our own greatest assets and that we love to explore our own backyard. And we also have seen research that says folks at this point feel safer in cars than they do in public transportation, whether that means an airplane, a train, anything else. And so we are going to be encouraging road trips like we never have before. And not only is this a great opportunity for Coloradans themselves to explore their own state, but also it's an opportunity for us as a state to continue pushing the Care for Colorado message, which is sustainable travel. And going to more off the beaten path locations, dispersing crowds. Luckily for us, we have acres and acres of public lands that are just itching to be explored, or at least we're itching to explore them, I should say. And it'll be a great time to do it once folks feel safe enough and once it's advisable to do so. And then from there, I really see us expanding into those regional markets as people feel comfortable and as the restrictions are lifted. Colorado does have an international draw, but we don't necessarily see that as the first floodgate to open when it's safe to travel. I think we want to start at home and work our way out from there.
Well, as a Coloradan, I'm excited about that.
Sign me up.
I know. We're all going to have to get together and do like a group travel massive Colorado hike or something.
Absolutely.
Well, but from a distance.
Yes, 6 feet apart. One thing I also want to mention is we have a social media campaign going right now on Visit Colorado on our Facebook page called Colorado Calm. It's your daily dose of Colorado calm. So while folks can't come here and experience Colorado for themselves right now, or while I can't go up necessarily to Summit County, I'm here in Denver, I can experience it from my computer and with industry partners putting up videos that remind you of why you like to come visit here. And it's that sense of tranquility that we often get when we're in nature. And it's been really nice and soothing.
Yeah. So, I love it. I follow it.
Oh, good. Yay.
Oh, yes. Of course. Of course.
Good. I love it.
No, that's great. And do you have anywhere where like we're going to spend money on X first?
Honestly, that answer is way above my pay grade.
Okay, then. But we know that you're focusing statewide here first.
Absolutely. One thing I can say to that is Colorado, as in our marketing campaigns, have never done a fall campaign before. We've never had funding allotted to it. And we've seen over the course of the last few years, there is a market for that. And it's folks that are maybe a little bit older. They don't have kids necessarily, or they're empty nesters, and they want to travel in an off-peak time to get away from the crowds. So that is something that we're looking into, is if there's capacity for a fall campaign, which could be really fun.
So cool, because we all know the aspens are gorgeous in the fall.
Exactly.
Cool, that's great to know. Kent, what about you guys?
Yeah, so we're starting to do stuff now, even though the bulk of our time is spent on putting out fires or dealing with current stuff. But we are doing some work on our website and other areas so that when that bump comes that John mentioned, which there will be, that we are in the best position possible to do that. And when we start spending money, it's going to be on digital marketing and staffing. Those are the two areas that we'll hit first.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Gosh, I'm trying to think from a media standpoint if I can offer anything there. My plan to, get back to work once we can start to travel again is actually to explore locally first, really get out in the state. Because I do think that's probably what's going to be available to us at first. I think as all travel writers and especially bloggers, influencers, whatever you want to call them, are hoping for is that, you know, destinations, companies, whatever, that have the money will focus a lot on kind of that social media marketing and so on and so forth, and getting stuff out right away. And I'm hoping that people realize that, you know, bloggers can get that message out really quickly, as well as social media, that type of stuff. I think, John, what you said about this is where people are, you know, online, so you got to hit them right there. I think that's great. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the case for, you know, my sector of the industry kind of coming back, is that people will want to get the word out that, you know, Colorado is open, the world is open, Africa's open, Japan's open. So that's kind of where I'm at. I try not to spend money whenever I can. So I'm actually spending a lot of my time on SEO now. And so that hopefully when things come back, I'll be in a good position. So, okay, I know we are at 6:20. So I've seen a bunch of questions come up. Jules, you're my moderator. What do we have here for questions?
Oh my gosh, we have lots of questions coming through nonstop. Okay, I'm going to just kind of summarize some of them because there's been so many great questions and I know we don't have tons of time. But I know one thing that people are very curious about right now for Kent and for John specifically, people are wondering, have any customers been stranded? Have you had to like rescue people? And on that note, like maybe people who are traveling later, or maybe they had bookings. Are you seeing a lot of postponements? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I'll start. I mean, yeah, we tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of postponements. That's the only win that we found during this time of crisis. I think canceling is nobody's happy with that. So especially the customer. So, you know, postponing is the way to go if it can be done. In terms of strandings, we had to get a few people out sort of last minute, but it all worked out and nobody got stuck there. I mean, we did have people who were on things like Egyptian Now cruises who, you know, while they were there or just after they left, they found out that somebody else on the cruise you know, contracted COVID-19. And so we had to deal with some post-trip stuff with that, but it wasn't physically getting them out. It was sort of like helping them find a testing facility in another country and that kind of thing.
And what do you think, as far as the travel industry, what do you need to do to really rebuild that trust with those travelers that just kind of feel a little down about, you know, all of the shutdowns and the money and just like the struggle of getting home? Any ideas?
Sorry, you know, I think it's just empathizing with them. I mean, what we found to work best is to empathize with them, remind them of why they started this whole process to begin with, and that can still happen. It's just going to be delayed. And so that gives you more time to anticipate your trip, and it'll be just as good or better when you end up going. But it's sympathizing and just saying this, you know, it stinks for everybody. It's nobody's fault. You know, we just got to make the best of it.
Mm-hmm. How about John? Do you think that this is another question that came through as far as like the downstream effect of people who are now, like a lot of us have the benefit of working from home, but there's a lot of people that can't. You know, they're a tour operator, they're a local guide. What have you seen on that effect, and what can we do to repair some of those opportunities?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a really great question. And like I mentioned, one of our key values is really benefiting, the communities that we're in. And of course, our folks on the ground, a lot of whom are our own staff, that sort of thing. And yeah, in the downtime, when essentially like travel went to zero in Japan, how do we, keep our tour leaders occupied? How do we keep our guides occupied? And so, yeah, we've been doing a few things in that respect, to just kind of keep them going, keep them doing different tasks, what are their skill sets, You know, can we offer services to folks who are in Japan? You know, can we do shorter durations? Like, you know, people can't come in from outside, but, you know, these are places that we haven't worked in or offered services and products in before. You know, kind of like keeping, you know, an active mind about how to pivot and how to offer new things, you know, to new parts of the market, that sort of thing, so that you can keep people employed and so that you can keep, you know, people's skills sharp, that sort of thing. So I think, you know, you mentioned the key word there, how do we heal it? You know, because yeah, there was a huge shock to the system very suddenly, you know, where it wasn't a problem then, you know, yesterday it was. So yeah, it's complex, it's ongoing. Yeah, everybody needs to hang in there. Yeah, good
There've been a lot of layoffs.
Kent.
Well, there have been a lot of layoffs, and I think there are some people that are curious. What would happen? Like, any recommendations for people who still want to work in travel, but maybe not now? Like, I mean, anybody can think of that would be helpful for people who want to stay in the industry. I don't know if my internet's working. Hello? Okay.
Yeah,
sure,
I mean,
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, you were cutting out a little bit, but I think I got the gist of it. And you know, if just keep trying whatever you were doing before. Reach out to people. I'm getting resumes every day, but you know, it's nice if you acknowledge what's going on and say, hey, you probably aren't hiring right now, but you know, would you be willing to chat with me in 3 months or sometime in the future? And just being proactive. There's going to be a rebound in hiring. It's just a question when. And you know, if I've got people in my folder of potential candidates and I don't have to post a job, that's great by me. You know, it saves me time and money. So
yeah, definitely. And something that we had another question specifically for you, Kent, about Africa's recovery. Do you think that there's like a unique effect there for what the culture is like and just the general situation would be?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. It's an unknown at this point. I mean, they've had vastly fewer cases reported than almost everywhere else in the world. They've shut down the borders on almost all the countries in order, at least the ones that we sell, in order to stop the spread or reduce the spread. And so if the first thing is true and the second thing works, then we might get lucky and have a lower impact in some other regions of the world. It could also be the case that there's lots of people that are infected right now and we just don't know it, and you know, it's not being reported, and we just don't know. But I think time will tell. I think we'll know in the next couple of months as to how Africa will fare compared to some of the other regions of the world.
Cool. We have just a couple last questions. Abby, I know people were very curious about, I don't know if you know the answer because it's not exactly tourism specific, but we're curious about like providing assistance to restaurants other than CARES, and also generally, you know, like, so just speaking on behalf of like the restaurant industry and also about small towns, we're curious, like, how do you think, what can we do to help those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, if you are a small business or need support, I would visit choosecolorado.com/COVID-19. So that is a page with COVID-19 specific resources from the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. So it's really just a collection of what those grant opportunities are, loan opportunities. Eventually there will be a website put together on job opportunities as well for folks that got laid off and need help looking for work elsewhere. So keep your eyes peeled on that. I would also, sorry, I got distracted. We ordered takeout and he just ran to get it and I kind of lost my train of thought. So, but there are resources available, so I recommend looking into those. Also, I mean, everyone knows that, you know, buy gift cards to support your local restaurant if you can't dine in. Like the panelists are all doing, support your local craft breweries. And, you know, we're all in it together. So just keep the money local if you can.
Abby, can you repeat that website one more time, or we could type it into the
Sure.
chat?
Yep. It's choosecolorado.com/COVID-19.
Okay. Hopefully I got it. All right, cool. Thank you so
Perfect.
much.
Yeah.
The last question, there's a really, as far as like the hotels, Abby, do you have any ideas? I know that tourism more specifically make a lot of money, say through tax for hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Any idea of recovery for that type of loss here?
Yeah, that's tough. I would say Colorado as a state, the tourism office is lucky in that our budget is funded through the legislature, not taxes, or well, taxes in a sense, but not hotel taxes. And so for those smaller communities, it's definitely going to be more challenging. And the communities that rely on those tax dollars will be more challenging. So that's when we really have to look at our recovery plan of what are areas of Colorado that need more support than others. And as a state agency, we're tasked with not necessarily driving visitation and spending to one area of the state over another, but really building up Colorado as a destination where people want to go and spend money. But in a recovery situation, we are more inclined to maybe drive people in one spot over another if one spot really needs the help.
Yeah, kind of spread it out.
Exactly. Spread the love.
Thank you guys. You did a wonderful job answering all these tough questions. There's really no right answer, but there's a lot of opportunities. And the very last one I saved till the end is, in general, do you think that travel, I mean, are we going to be the same? Can we go back to normal just the way things were? Do you have any ideas on like predicting that, and like if there's any strategic ways we should focus our energy now?
I have no idea. I really don't know. I think we all talk about what that new normal will be, not knowing what it is. Because, I mean, not only is this a public health issue, but it's become an economic issue as well. And the landscape could completely change in the next couple of weeks or months. We really don't know. But I think the important thing is to stay nimble and stay close to the people that you love and those relationships, and lean on each other when you can.
Yeah, and I agree, and I would add to that just that I think, you know, there are going to be some changes. I think that they won't be wholesale, you know, that it's not going to be turned on its head, but there'll be adaptations. I think, you know, companies will have might reduce office space and have more work from home employees because they see that in this time when we were forced to do it, that it actually works okay. So, you know, that's a side effect that, you know, I think we might see more companies, like my industry is very rigid in terms of the rules and the terms and conditions. And I think we might see some loosening of that because it's starting now, and some people might just continue it. So that'd be good for consumers, probably. So I don't know what all the changes will be. There'll be some, but it's not going to be like a whole new world, I don't think.
Yeah, and I would add on to what, you know, Kent just said about, you know, kind of things going, you know, better for consumers and that sort of thing. But especially in terms of, you know, consumer awareness and knowledge, you know, this has been a test for all of us, you know, both on the consumer side and the supplier side, you know, in terms of what are the terms and conditions, and folks not knowing what, you know, the actual terms of their travel insurance is and that sort of thing. And, you know, not actually reading through the terms and conditions and when deposits are non-refundable and those kinds of things. And so I think, you know, for the general public, they'll be entering future travel, a lot more knowledgeable, a lot more understanding, asking better questions, and really getting, I think, there's been a period of kind of people not being totally or not knowing everything about the travel that they're buying. But I feel like, going forward, people will be a lot more, they'll know what they're buying and they'll know what to ask for, and they'll get the right products for them, and get the experience that they want and that sort of thing. Whereas folks have kind of just sort of wandered through before, and most have had excellent times. I think there'll be a lot more knowledge to back that up going forward, which is great. So, yeah.
Oh, did you want me to answer too, Jules? I suppose I could. I don't know. I'm trying to right now I don't know if things will change very much in the world of travel writing and blogging. It's hard to say at all. Our worlds also kind of depend on the budgets that companies and DMOs have available. And I don't know what's going to happen there. That's kind of a big unknown still, I would say. I can only hope that people will start searching for travel again, because as a blogger, part of my income is passive income from, just search advertising and affiliate revenue. So, I'm hoping that people, as they're sitting home and maybe we get through this period, this initial period that we're in of, everyone just watching the news and like what is happening today, we slowly transition back into people starting to get into that inspirational period of, searching online and so on. And once again, as John said, we're all sitting here online anyway. So I'm hoping maybe that'll go up. I think from just a positivity thing, like what positive can happen here or what can come out of this that's positive for anyone is kind of what Abby mentioned too, is like, you're closer to your friends, family, even though we're farther apart. It's weird. It's a weird feeling, I think. And yeah, I think we're all going to learn new things. I agree with Kent and the whole idea that we are learning how to work from home and just be more digital in general. Time will tell how it all changes.
Wonderful. Well, I know we're running out of time. Sherry, do you want to go with our final question?
Yes, I believe it was something about positivity or any takeaways, but anything you want to leave with our audience or any positives to this, I would say, from your standpoint. So Abby, we'll let you go.
Okay. I think one positive that I've seen, I found it really encouraging to see all the businesses that have adapted the way that they operate to help. Whether it's I saw a story about a distillery now making hand sanitizer. I saw a story about a brewery that has the capacity to can beer, while some smaller breweries do not. And so they were taking their machinery over to those smaller breweries and helping them can their beer so they wouldn't just lose it all when the breweries were closed. So seeing stories like that and just hearing about how folks are helping one another has been really inspiring. And it kind of, when you feel down about the state of the world, you look at stuff like that and it gives you faith in humanity again. So I really appreciate that and value it.
That's great. That's great. John, what about you? Any positive side to this?
Yeah, I know. I guess it's kind of early in the process, and it's hard to talk about that, think about these things with everything going on. But I would definitely say that this is a worldwide shared experience. So something to the magnitude we have not experienced in our lifetimes up to this point. So kind of no matter where you're from, you will have a shared experience with people of different cultures, different countries, that sort of thing. And so I'm at the core an optimist, and I really hope that kind of the world will take it forward and learn new ways of collaboration and that sort of thing out of, the shared experience that we have. And so, yeah, I think that's a rarely, like a good potential positive to come out of everything. And like Abby mentioned, really keeping the people, in your life close and really being able to identify what's important, who's important, and why. People will definitely recognize that and be able to identify that through this. So, yeah.
I love that idea of a shared experience around the world. That's pretty cool. And Kent, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple random ones. I think that these trying times force you to look at look in the mirror and see what's there, and it gives you an opportunity to improve things and learn new things. You learn to do a webinar. I learned how to use the phone app for our VoIP phone system, which I had been not learning on purpose for months and months. And so now I know how to do that. I think you learn stuff about your employees, like, which ones are more adaptable, which ones are more good in a crisis, and which ones are not so much. And so I think that's good information to have when you're looking to the future. And I think, the thing is, I'll go back to what I said before, which is that, don't give up, and you're going to be stronger when you get through this. It doesn't seem like it right now, but assuming you make it through it, which I hope all of us do, in the business sense, you're going to be better at something. And so just try and remember, try and focus on that as we go through this process.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think this has been really exciting for all of us. I mean, here we are, the first chapter to do one of these. So I think it went really well. I had fun. I drank a beer. What more can I ask for? So, I think also for Travel Massive Colorado, time will tell as far as, do we do another one of these? Stay tuned. Or will we be meeting at Wayfinder again soon? I know Jules and I had some really good thoughts and ideas and planning for Travel Massive this year. So we just may have to just kind of pivot a little bit, but do look for future communication on all of that. And I guess we'll also probably find out if we can get this, we have been recording it, and if it'll be available online for our members, we'll put that out too. Jules, do you have anything else to say?
I just want to say thank you guys for coming. The panelists had some great answers and some tough questions too, and so much interaction here. Our friends that we normally see and friends from all over the world. So thank you guys for joining us. I can hear the passion in your voices as you speak, and those final uplifting words. Like, I have a huge smile because I realize, like, yeah, we are totally in this together, and we are all here to support each other. So please remember that Travel Massive is a resource for you to find friends. You can, obviously keep in touch with your friends and your colleagues, but you can always make new colleagues and new friends too on Travel Massive. So there's a lot of adapting and pivoting, like you said, that we'll be able to make it through together, you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, okay, everyone get their takeout food or their home cooked food. We all know we're not going to a restaurant, so enjoy. And we will be in touch again soon. And panelists, thank you so much for doing this and taking the time to do this. It's really awesome talking to you all. It gives me a lot of faith in everything that's going on in our future. So
you're very welcome.
Yeah, happy to help.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great night.
Bye. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.